It's April 26, 2013, Norton Shores, Michigan, 11:07 p.m. A customer walks into an Exxon gas station expecting to buy cigarettes or grab a late-night snack. Instead, they find something that would haunt this small community for over a decade. The store is completely empty. No cashier behind the counter, no explanation. Just an eerie silence that shouldn't exist. The cash register shows the last transaction at 10:51 p.m. 16 minutes. That's all it took for 25-year-old Jessica Heeringa to vanish without a trace from her workplace, leaving behind her purse, her coat, her car keys, and $420 in cash. But here's what's truly chilling. She also left behind a single drop of blood. Tonight, we're diving into one of Michigan's most disturbing cold cases that would eventually expose a serial killer operating right under everyone's nose. This isn't just a story about a missing person. This is about how one young mother's disappearance would unravel a web of violence that connected multiple victims across years of terror. Jessica Lynn Heeringa was born on July 16, 1987, the youngest of three daughters to Pete Kenkins and Shelley Heeringa. By 25, she was a single mother working tirelessly to support her 3-year-old son. Like many young parents, she took whatever work she could get to make ends meet. That meant working the late shift at the Exxon Mobil station on East Sternberg Road in Norton Shores. Gas stations have always been dangerous places for women to work, especially alone at night. One Reddit user who worked at a station in the late 80s shared her experience. "I am female and worked part-time at one as a college student. After that experience, I knew I would never let any of my kids work at one, especially my girls. I was so naive. I can't believe I got out of there okay, not to mention the daily sexual harassment from the clientele." Another former gas station employee from Columbus, Ohio, described working alone from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Daily sexual harassment was a thing. I had a drunk guy refuse to leave until I gave him my phone number and passed out in the bushes in front of the gas station. We were robbed at least once per month. But Jessica needed the work. She was determined to provide for her son no matter the risks. What she couldn't have known was that someone had been watching her. Someone who saw her not as a hard-working mother, but as a target. The night of April 26th started like any other. Jessica arrived for her shift, prepared to work alone until closing time. Security footage from Sodini Blueberry Farm, located a mile away from the gas station, would later capture a silver minivan driving by at 11:04 p.m., around the exact time Jessica went missing. But what happened in those crucial 16 minutes between her last transaction and when the customer found the empty store? The scene investigators found was both puzzling and terrifying. There were no signs of a struggle. No money was taken from the register. Jessica's personal belongings were untouched. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. But that single drop of blood told a different story. This wasn't a case of someone abandoning their job. This was an abduction. Detective Michael Kasher, who would become the lead investigator on the case, knew immediately that something was wrong. "As I got promoted from detective sergeant to lieutenant, that was the only case that I took with me," he later recalled. The pressure was immense. A young mother had disappeared, leaving behind a toddler who would grow up wondering what happened to his mom. The investigation began with the basics. Who was Jessica? Who were her friends, her enemies, her romantic interests? But as investigators dug deeper, they found no obvious suspects. Jessica was well-liked, hardworking, and focused on her son. She didn't have enemies. She wasn't involved in anything dangerous. She was just a young woman trying to make an honest living. The search effort was massive. Over 2,000 tips poured in from the public. Volunteers scoured the area around the gas station. Police followed every lead, no matter how small. But weeks turned into months, and months turned into years, with no sign of Jessica. Then, on June 29, 2014, something happened that would initially seem unrelated but would eventually crack the case wide open. Rebecca Bletch, a 36-year-old mother, was out for her evening jog on a rural road in Dalton Township, Michigan, when she was shot multiple times and killed. Her body was discovered by neighbors with some of her personal items arranged in a neat pile beside her. The crime scene was bizarre. A single shell casing was found in the middle of the road. On the other side, where Rebecca's body was discovered, investigators found her sports armband, cell phone, headphones, and sunglasses all stacked together. It was methodical, organized, the work of someone who took time to arrange things just so. For nearly 2 years, investigators working on both cases had no leads. Jessica's disappearance remained a mystery. Rebecca's murder went unsolved. But sometimes, it's the perpetrator's own actions that ultimately lead to their downfall. If you're finding this case as gripping as I am, and you want to stay updated on more true crime stories that expose the darkness hiding in plain sight, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. These stories need to be told, and your support helps us continue investigating the cases that matter. On April 16, 2016, a 16-year-old girl was walking in Muskegon County when a silver van pulled up beside her. The driver, pointing a gun at her, ordered her to get in. But this teenager was brave, she was smart, and she was lucky. She jumped from the moving vehicle and ran to safety, immediately reporting the incident to police. The attempted kidnapping led investigators to Jeffrey Thomas Willis, a furniture factory worker from Muskegon Township. When police searched his silver 2006 Dodge Grand Caravan, they found something that would change everything. Hidden under the driver's seat was a lockbox containing a gun that investigators would later link to both Jessica's disappearance and Rebecca's murder. But that wasn't all. The search of Willis's home uncovered a portable hard drive that contained a file folder labeled VIX. Inside that folder were 2 subfolders, one containing the initials of Rebecca Bletch and the other containing the initials of Jessica Heeringa. The implications were horrifying. This wasn't random violence. This was the digital trophy collection of a serial killer. As investigators dug deeper into Willis's background, disturbing patterns emerged. He had been a frequent customer at the gas station where Jessica worked. His route to work took him directly past the Exxon station. His co-workers reported that he had discussed Jessica's case with them after she went missing, showing an unusual interest in the investigation. More chilling still, Willis matched a police artist's sketch of a man witnesses had seen being real flirty with Jessica on the night of her disappearance. His co-workers also revealed that Willis was scheduled to work on April 26, 2013, but never showed up for his shift. He didn't return to work for several days after Jessica's disappearance. The evidence was mounting, but investigators needed more. That's when they turned to Willis's cousin, Kevin Laverne Bloom, a corrections officer at a state prison. Initially, Bloom claimed he hadn't seen Willis for almost a year and had never seen him with a handgun. But under pressure, his story began to change. In a second interview, Bloom made shocking claims. He said that Willis had forced him to help dispose of Jessica's body. According to Bloom, Willis called him the day after Jessica's disappearance, asking him to come to their grandfather's old house on Bailey Street in Norton Shores. Bloom claimed that when he arrived, Willis showed him Jessica's lifeless body in the basement. The details Bloom provided were disturbing and graphic. He described seeing evidence of sexual assault and head injuries. He claimed he and Willis wrapped Jessica's body in a sheet and buried her in a hole Willis had already dug near Sheridan Road and Laketon Road. But then, in typical fashion for someone caught in a web of lies, Bloom recanted his entire story, claiming he had made everything up. The question remained, was Bloom telling the truth the first time, or was he lying to protect himself? Prosecutor DJ Hilson believes Bloom knows more than he's saying. The good news is that for murder, in the state of Michigan, there's no statute of limitations. So we can be very patient, and trust me, on behalf of all of law enforcement and my office, if there's enough evidence to show that, he will be charged. Reddit users have been following this case closely, with many expressing frustration about the working conditions Jessica faced. One commenter noted, "Very sad and sick case. She was snatched by a sexual sadist who attacked and killed one of 2 other women. She was working alone at a gas station at night with no security cameras." Another added, "She was a very beautiful girl. Unfortunately, I've always felt like gas stations are dangerous for women to work at. They definitely should have had security footage in 2013. The lack of security cameras became a major point of contention. Some Reddit users speculated about why the gas station didn't have proper surveillance. I think they're involved in illegal activity. There's a reason they don't want cameras. You'd think they'd want to ensure staff isn't stealing. I wouldn't be surprised if they had secret cameras. Others placed blame squarely on the employer. I think the gas station should share some responsibility. They shouldn't have a single employee working alone for safety reasons. Willis was first tried for Rebecca Bletch's murder in November 2017. The evidence against him was substantial. DNA analysis showed Willis's genetic material on the murder weapon. Blood matching Rebecca's was found on athletic gloves discovered in his van. Despite taking the stand and denying the charges, Willis was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Then came Jessica's case. On May 16, 2018, after just 1 hour of deliberation, a jury convicted Jeffrey Willis of the premeditated kidnapping and murder of Jessica Heeringa. The conviction was based entirely on circumstantial evidence. There was no DNA linking Willis to Jessica, no eyewitness testimony, no confession, but the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. Yet even with Willis behind bars, the case remains incomplete. Jessica's body has never been found. Her family continues to search for answers, and some even question whether Willis is truly responsible. In a 2023 phone interview from Cotton Correctional Facility, Willis maintained his innocence. "I was there that night too, but I didn't know who she was." Detective Casher, now retired, has his own theory about where Jessica's remains might be located. Based on the investigation, he believes her body could be in a very remote area, possibly the Manistee National Forest. But without Bloom's cooperation or a confession from Willis, the exact location may remain a mystery forever. The Jessica Heeringa case inspired proposed legislation known as Jessica's Law or the Jessica Heeringa Act. The bill would require gas stations and convenience stores open between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. to either install security camera systems or have at least 2 employees working during those hours. Despite being introduced in 2013, the bill has never been passed by the Michigan legislature, with small business owners citing concerns about the costs of additional security measures or extra staff. As we reach the end of this disturbing tale, it's important to remember that behind the headlines and legal proceedings was a real person. Jessica Heeringa was a daughter, a mother, a young woman with dreams and aspirations. Her son, who was just 3 when she disappeared, has grown up without his mother. Her family continues to live with the pain of not knowing exactly what happened to her or where she is. This case also serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by workers in late-night retail positions, particularly women. The testimonies from Reddit users who worked similar jobs paint a picture of an industry where harassment and danger are sadly commonplace. Jessica's story could have been prevented with better security measures, safer working conditions, or simply the presence of a second employee. If this case has moved you, if it's made you think about the safety of workers in your own community, then please take a moment to like this video and share it with others. These stories matter not just as entertainment but as calls to action. We can honor Jessica's memory by advocating for safer working conditions and supporting legislation that protects vulnerable workers. 10 years have passed since Jessica Heeringa disappeared from that gas station in Norton Shores. Jeffrey Willis sits in prison, convicted of her murder, but still maintaining his innocence. Kevin Bloom walks free, having served his time for being an accessory after the fact. And somewhere, possibly in a remote forest or buried in an unmarked grave, Jessica's remains wait to be found. The case may be officially closed, but for Jessica's family, for the investigators who worked tirelessly to find her, and for a community that will never forget that terrible night in April 2013, the search for complete justice continues. Until Jessica comes home, until her family has the closure they deserve, her story will remain a haunting reminder of how quickly a normal night can turn into a nightmare that lasts forever.